Okay, welcome to Cooperators. We're back. We're doing episode 17 of Cooperators. Let me bring the cover art up there. Yeah, it's been a while.
That much closer to episode 20.
I'm here with Augmented Biscuits.
Hi. That much closer to episode 20.
His sweet honey to my Uncle Bumblebee. I don't think my nieces are watching right now. But they'll probably pop up any second. So here we are.
I'm your crepe. I'm your Nutella to your crepe.
Nutella to my crepe. I'm chucking dice, by the way. I'm here with Augmented Biscuits, and we're doing a little podcast. Pardon me while I shout this to all of social media who probably aren't paying attention to us. Again, we have a chat open. This is streamed live. Today we did it live. Last time we pre-recorded because we were having a little trouble with the audio equipment. Also, we went on location. Now we're just here on the studio, a.k.a. my apartment, just recording onto the internet.
Also, Trump sent ICE agents to our location.
Yeah, net neutrality and such. If you have any questions or want to say any comments, we'll read them on the live chat as long as, they're appropriate. We're not going to read all your raunchy chats. We're gonna basically say our raunchy stuff. Our raunchy stuff trumps your raunchy stuff. Trumps raunchy stuff.
I don't. The P video.
The P video.
I don't even know what that's all about. Anyways, yeah, it's been a while. We went on location. We're actually excited because we're nearing episode 20 pretty soon, and I think we're gonna have a big bash. And when I mean a big bash, we're just probably gonna get really drunk and record. Also, E3's coming up, and we'll
E3 is coming up. Let me bring up the graphic for that one. E3 is coming up, and guess what? Both Augmented Biscuits and I are going. I was able to get a free pass because I'm awesome, and only awesome people go to E3, as Augmented Biscuits already knows.
I will tell you this. Do not make the same mistake other people have made when they got on E3 and get in a line for a fucking demo station.
Oh, really?
Because you will be there forever.
Right. Well, I figured that it's kind of like Comic-Con, because San Diego Comic-Con is very line-oriented, and like everyone's always there, and they're in there all day.
It's not that bad at E3, but I think what's going to make this year probably worse is that they actually opened it up to the general public. And not really where you can just walk in. It's more you had to buy a pass. So they opened it up to the general public by providing passes, and these passes were expensive. I mean, really expensive, which is not surprising because it's an industry trade show.
Right.
But they did open it up for the general public to buy passes. Apparently, they've been sold out for a couple months already. So I'm expecting an influx of.
What do you call mouth breathers, right?
Yeah.
Now explain to me what a mouth breather is, because like I think that term is hilarious.
I think mouth breathers mainly just comes from the fact that people don't know how to breathe through their nostrils properly, and they breathe through their mouth. I don't know. I don't really know the origins of it, but
Well, what classifies as a mouth breather at these conventions?
I have just From my experience and my point of view, I would use the term mouth breather for like a bunch of just video game obsessed, like no kind of sense of awareness, and also no general sense of decency or mannerisms when it comes to anything video game related. I mean, you have that kind of persona in every.
You have the comic book nerd.
You have the comic book nerd. You have the film school.
Yeah, the film school nerd. Yeah.
You have the you have anime nerds like that.
Right.
Essentially, like the worst stereotype you can have of a video game enthusiast, nerd, geek / whatever the fuck you want to call them.
It's like that weird, like they don't have this awareness that some of the stuff they could say is, well, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And irritating.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I'm a huge comic book fan. I like retro games and stuff. But I'm not going to sit there and bogart a panel with my thoughts. Unless, I don't know, I'm moderating the panel or something like that.
I think a lot of that, also a lot of the mouth breather comes from the self-awareness. People just being not really self-aware of things. But you will run into that quite a bit at E3. Probably more, though, this year because they opened the general public. It's not bad. I think you'll enjoy it. I mean, you've never been to E3. I think you'll...
I've never been to E3. This will be my first E3, so it'll be, I don't know, it'll be a kick.
I think you'll enjoy it.
I don't like video games, and I don't like people who know about video games.
Exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's why we're both going, so I can know about the video games.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's cool being around. I mean, especially for me, when I used to be in the industry, it's nice. I actually enjoy it. But as the years have gone on, I've not have been in E3 longer than like 3 hours.
Right.
Usually I hit like a 3-4 hour limit, and then I pretty much decide I'm
You're
done.
like, okay, let's get out of here.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm done. So it's like, go to lunch, and then when I'm done having lunch, I was like, I'm going to go back for like another 30, 40 minutes, and then I'm done. So that's coming up. There's a lot of good things I'm looking forward to. One of them we're going to talk about today is Destiny 2. We're also excited to see what new games are going to come out for PS4 and the Switch.
Right.
I'm actually kind of interested to see what they're going to have for the Switch, mainly because I want to see if the Switch is going to bomb or not. Because, again, Nintendo systems are all about the games. So
yeah, I mean, they've had relative success with the release of the Switch. Obviously, there's always like there's been hardware issues, but I mean, it just came out, and that's pretty much what Nintendo. I always see it as Nintendo's doing its beta right now.
Yeah.
On the console, and then when Christmas time comes out, they'll have those problems fixed. And it really all depends on what other games they have besides Zelda. I realize people love that Zelda game.
They have Mario Kart 8, which is just a re-release from Wii U.
Yeah. But I want to see what they have besides that game.
The big one that a lot of people are anticipating at E3 is Mario Odyssey.
Oh, the one where he's like running around with the real people?
Yeah, and a lot of people are looking forward to that. It's funny. As the Switch has gone on and they've been releasing games, I'm gaining a little more interest, especially Mario Kart 8, just because it looks so much fun.
Right.
But I'm also remembering what Nintendo does, which is they release like 5 iterations of their consoles.
Yeah.
And just like the DS. I mean, so I'm going to wait until it hits a year mark, and maybe they lower the price, or they release a new version of the console that they fix all the glaring flaws.
Yeah. I mean, like the new Nintendo DS is coming out, and that looks incredible. I just got a used 3DS, and I'm thinking about getting the new Nintendo 2DS because my used 3DS is kind of like, it's a used 3DS. It's not working as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't really use the 3D a lot.
I thought you bought the new 3DS.
Well, I bought the 3DS XL that came out before, but then it can't play the Super Nintendo games.
Yeah, okay.
So I got a used new Nintendo 3DS, which is the newest one that can play Super Nintendo games because I wanted to play Earthbound, not emulated or whatever, an official released license. And then
it's not working properly?
Well, after I beat Earthbound, I ended up downloading a game called Moon Chronicles, which is actually a fun first-person shooter on the 3DS. And then I just started having all sorts of problems. Like, when I turn off the actual game and or the system and turn it back on, it might freeze.
Where did you buy it from?
I just got a Newegg. Someone was selling it used. And I mean, it looks used. It's scratched up, and
you can't return it?
Nah, it's used. It was like $100-something. So it was a pretty good deal for that because it's like $199 retail. But
the new Nintendo 3DS still is expensive. For a handheld.
Yeah, for a handheld, and like the 2DS coming out, the new Nintendo 2DS, which can play all the Super Nintendo games.
They just removed the 3D.
They just removed the 3D, and it looks like it's
great.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks slick.
I'm actually almost kind of want to buy that.
Right.
and sell you my new Nintendo 3D.
So it doesn't work?
So it doesn't work? No, mine is brand new anyways.
Right.
No, it looks nice.
Yeah.
And actually I was looking at some of the changes they made as far as like they let you remove the SD card without unscrewing the back panel.
Yeah, that was annoying.
Which I didn't realize that was how it is with the Nintendo 3DS, the new Nintendo 3DS. So I'm like, well, I hope I never have to switch out my SD card. But also they did a few improvements, like they changed kind of positioning on certain things. They said it's a lot more comfortable. I mean, it looks cool.
It looks slimmer, and I kind of want to get it. It's only like $140 or something like that.
Do it.
Well, I need to get it because I can't play some.
Buy it now.
It's not available yet.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay, let's move on. We were talking about E3. You said you wanted to talk about a little bit of a game called.
All right. Do we want to do that, or do we want to talk about Twin Peaks?
We want to talk about Twin Peaks. Let's get rid.
Let's sandwich it. Let's sandwich it together. Let's do game, video, or game, movie, game.
Okay, well, game, movie, game. Then we don't talk about Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
TV.
we can talk about let's talk or TV, whatever.
Okay, so game. So we'll talk.
We can talk about the games later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to hear about Twin Peaks.
You want to hear about Twin Peaks
because I've never seen the only thing I've ever seen of Twin Peaks was Fire Walk with Me.
Okay, that's a bad one to start on.
Yeah, but I actually liked it.
Okay. So if you guys have been like sleeping underneath a rock or don't know anything about it or, haven't watched television beyond watching stuff on Netflix, Twin Peaks was a television show in 1990 actually. A lot of people say that it was like one of those first television shows to be very cinematic, like almost like an art film, and it was directed and produced by director David Lynch, who's famous for movies like Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Straight Story, Wild at Heart, a lot of like...
Don't forget Eraserhead.
Eraserhead.
Weirdest fucking movie ever created.
Weirdest movie, Eraserhead, and The Elephant Man, actually. And some people might know him from Dune, which is a movie I enjoy too. I like most of these films. So David Lynch wanted to kind of create a story about a small like lodging town near Washington, or in Washington, that borders Washington and Canada, and it's about a murder of a woman. I'm sorry, a teenage girl named Laura Palmer. And what happens is that this is the homecoming queen who's just found wrapped in plastic and savagely murdered. And basically, the show is about just the town and like all of its dark secrets, because it seems to be like sort of an idyllic town to live in, and everyone knows everyone's name and everyone's aware of like, what everyone's doing. But underneath the town's sort of like sunshiny, like, disposition, there's a darker side. And so the murder basically is the start of the discovery of this like darker side that's beneath like, the sort of like sunshiny area of Twin Peaks. Which Fire Walk with Me actually is about Laura Palmer. That's a prequel movie.
Yeah.
So to speak, about everything that happened before the start of the show, and that was released after, ironically enough, at the end of the second season of Twin Peaks, which was the last season until this day. So what happens is in the series of Twin Peaks, we follow a character named Dale Cooper, who is, so to speak, I would call sort of like the Sherlock Holmes of the series. He's a FBI investigator. Brought in to investigate the killing of Laura Palmer, and then he just gets like wrapped up with a lot of the sort of underbelly, the criminal elements of Twin Peaks, and then eventually it becomes very supernatural. It becomes he gets in contact with this thing called the Black Lodge, which is this sort of location where these strange beings exist. There's like a short little person, or I don't know what the political term is, midget, I guess. Some people call it dwarf, I guess.
Yeah.
Who wears this sort of red suit. There's a very tall giant man who's the same actor who played, I think, Lurch in the Addams Family's movies. Not so much the original television show. That was Ted Cassidy. Then you have like a one-armed man, and then you have, just all these weird kind of beings that talk like basically backwards. So how they talk is that their words are said backwards, but then played backwards, so they're saying the words the right way. And so it's kind of a weird sort of deliberate way of speaking. If any of you've seen that Simpsons episode where Chief Wiggum has a dream, and like there's actually a scene where like I believe this was the Who Shot Mr. Burns episode. Lisa appears to Chief Wiggum and talks the same way, and Wiggum just can't understand a word she's saying. So you follow this person named Dale Cooper, who's a special agent from the FBI, and he's trying to investigate this entire thing. And around, like, I guess towards the end of season 2, he gets into a confrontation with a character named Wyndham Earl, who's this sort of weird, I would say Moriarty type character. And Dale gets stuck in the Black Lodge, and a doppelganger is put in his place, which is possessed by this character named Bob. Looks like we got a viewer here. You guys suck. Just kidding. Love you guys.
That's my wife.
So anyways, you have this character you have this being called Bob, which you find out in earlier in the second season is the reason why Laura Palmer got killed. He possessed Laura Palmer's father, and basically did the deed of like murdering her and wrapping her in plastic and such. Spoiler alert. But come on, the show has been around for over 25 years.
Can't believe it's been 25 years.
It's been 25 years. So it ended with this like cliffhanger. Basically, they thought they were going to come back for a second season. I don't know if they were so much that they thought they were coming back for a second season, or they were hoping that like the cliffhanger would like garner interest so that they could go on for a third season. That's actually happened before, where like a show decided to just like throw out a really like just impossible cliffhanger, and people just like tuned in and wanted to know what happened, next. So basically, yeah, there's an evil Dale going around that's possessed by this, malevolent being, while the good Cooper is stuck in the Black Lodge talking to all these like, weird, backwards talking folk. And this is where Fire Walk with Me happens, which is just like pretty much a prequel. Little bits of it here and there are actually continuations from the original series, because supposedly the Black Lodge exists in an area where time doesn't really exist. Everything's just happening, around them at the same time.
Why does the lodge have to be black?
Well, it technically isn't. It's like if you look at the image right here, that's the Black Lodge. It's just got the zigzag lines and it's got the red curtains. It's not technically black. This is called the Red Room in the Black Lodge. Who knows? It's really difficult to explain.
Now, as far as his investigations into the town and stuff, does he also look into
we got some honking going on.
Does he also look into like anything else as far as like the origins, like why is a town kind of like a supernatural pinpoint, or like kind of like a conduit for the supernatural, like why are things so fucking weird as opposed to the rest of the country?
Well,
does that ever come up?
Yeah, that does come up a bit, and like there's a character named Hawk who's a Native American. He talks about like legends, from his tribe, and they actually do talk about the Black Lodge, and they also talk about this place called the White Lodge, which is sort of the polar opposite of the Black Lodge. It's more of a place that's more like a paradise, where the Black Lodge is very bizarre and terrifying at times. They do delve in it a little bit, but they don't really explain everything. A lot of this explanation you can get out of a book called The Secret History of Twin Peaks, which kind of chronicles all the weird nonsense that happens throughout the history of Twin Peaks, and also kind of like they basically kind of delve in to say that these beings are actually from another planet. Basically, they're more aliens than anything, but they just have this like almost supernatural way of like communicating and such. It's really interesting, and a lot of people say that this is a precursor to a lot of like the strange shows that you get nowadays. I mean, even in its trailer it says before the X-Files, before People Got Lost, before the Strange and Wonderful. Because if you look at a lot of like shows like X-Files, Lost, and Stranger Things, they all kind of delve in the same kind of realm. Like the Stranger Things, they have the Upside Down, basic sort of equivalent to the Black Lodge. You in Lost, you have like the cloud creature. You have all these like weird things that happen. These weird characters that come in and out of like the characters' lives. I mean, that could be equivalent to the people who like walk in the Black Lodge. X-Files, I mean, is like you can see it's about FBI agents. It's about like the paranormal. It's about all this other weird things that happen. You have the Syndicate who like communicate really. really strangely and such. A lot of that is like owed to pretty much that Twin Peaks kind of like created in its show.
When did Twin Peaks come out?
1990.
Oh, and then X-Files was like 92, right?
Yeah, or 93, 94.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why does everybody hate Fire Walk with Me?
Well, okay, so the problem with Fire Walk with Me is that, like, see, Twin Peaks Season 2 ended with a cliffhanger. So Fire Walk with Me, everyone assumed that, that's going to wrap it all up. So cool, we'll go check that out and then we'll, get a good, solid end to this story. Mm-hmm. And when they saw it, it kind of is like, here's the thing. It's about like a 2.5 hour movie. Mm-hmm. And a good portion of it was cut out because no one wants to watch a 3.5 hour movie. Not like this is back then, which was a little unheard of. So when this movie was released, it seemed a bit incomplete, a bit incoherent, and it also had to do with Laura Palmer and how she died. And the thing is that we already figured that out in the show, because like there's all these characters investigating what happened to Laura Palmer, not including Dale. There's Dale and a bunch of other characters as well. So when that happened, like people just were like turned off by this movie.
Like it was totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it's like it was unnecessary. It had a lot of confusing imagery, a lot of weird dialogue thrown about. It starts, to be about a certain type of characters, and then just ends up, being about a bunch of teenagers.
That's what kind of threw me off, because when I first watched it, it's like it starts off with Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland as FBI agents.
Yeah, Chet Desmond.
And then one of them disappears, and then like cuts to the next scene. It's like, wait, what the fuck happened to the other FBI guy? And it's just like it's really bizarre.
Yeah, it's not very coherent. Yeah. Now, if you do watch like the 3.5 hour cut, which I have, like someone took all the deleted scenes and put them back in the film because they recently released a lot of the deleted scenes all cleaned up with music, so that you could put in the film, and it does explain a lot more. And like if you look at it as a film about, like I guess I would say child molestation, depression, like teenage depression, or depression in general, then it's a very beautiful film. But if you went in there thinking that this would be a conclusion to Twin Peaks, it's not a very great film. It's not a very satisfying film, I would say. So that was the problem with Fire Walk with Me. Now, it was David Lynch's intentions, at least this is what I read through, like, a bunch of articles. I guess he said in interviews that if this movie was successful, he would go on to create a series of films that would wrap up, the
Twin Peaks
story. The Twin Peaks story. So, like, the next one would have been about Kyle MacLachlan's character, Dale Cooper, and how he would be freed from the Black Lodge, and maybe another one that just kind of wraps the entire thing up. Obviously, Fire Walk with Me wasn't very popular here or in France because it was booed at Cannes back in the day. It was incredibly popular in Japan.
Because Japan loves their weird shit.
Yeah. Well, I guess like it kind of spoke to them about that depression, because that teenage depression that people go through, and also the
pressures of parental of parents, but also of society, and things like that. I know also, and I know this is something we had talked to Tiny Dinosaurs about, was Japan really loves kind of these complicated stories because they love reading about it in detail and like companion pieces.
Yeah,
like
it's all about the journey. In their sense.
And perfect example is the Final Fantasy games. Yeah, people always wonder like, why can't you just tell a straight story with Final Fantasy games? And it's like, well, that's not how the Japanese like it. Japanese like these complicated kind of multi-layered stories because they like reading about this stuff in like either companion novels or like subsequent games.
That's why Silent Hill, another like I guess medium influenced by Twin Peaks. Yeah, that's why it's such a great game. Yeah, it's got a lot of layers.
Although I feel like Silent Hill is one of those things where I wish there would have been more companion pieces. They did comics, and they kind of had the comics were kind of based on stuff that on other stories of people in Silent Hill, and that's how kind of like the other games were too. Right. But if you ever have a chance, go to like GameFAQs, and there's people who have plot analysis of Silent Hill like 1 and 2, especially 2, because 2 is like the biggest. Like,
well, 2 is my favorite one. Yeah.
So if you go and you read those plot analysis, they're really detailed, and they have a lot of really good backstory, and that's kind of how I actually got into Twin Peaks, because I saw Fire Walk with Me, and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And then I ended up reading essentially the whole breakdown of the Twin Peaks TV series, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of really good layered mythology to it. So now, as far as the revival, do they off the bat kind of start delving into answers, or
okay, so
this again, we might spoil this.
This is spoilers, guys.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it,
so if you haven't seen it, you might want to tune out. But I'm going to talk about it anyways, because people. There's no way to go through this without spoilers. I'm going to say off the bat, they do not start with answering a lot of questions, other than where's Dale Cooper right now? Mm-hmm. And obviously that answer to that question was already answered in season 2. He's in the Black Lodge still, and then it's 25 years later. Mm-hmm. They even start with a scene that happened in the last episode, where Laura Palmer's the image of Laura Palmer appears in front of Dale Cooper in the second season finale, and she says, "I'll see you in 25 years." Mm-hmm. Until then, and she makes this sort of weird gesture that I can only describe as a tree, mm-hmm. With her hands. So what happens is that this is 25 years later, and Dale is still in the lodge. He's aged a bit. Not too bad, though.
Also, Kyle MacLachlan has aged pretty well.
Yeah, he's aged pretty well.
Because I even saw him in How I Met Your Mother, and he's aged really well.
Yeah. He looks pretty good for a guy his age.
What's he pushing, like
50? I don't know, 50 or 60, something like that.
That's good. That's really good.
I'd say 50. Yeah.
I'd do him a favor.
Special Agent Dale Cooper. So he's stuck in the Black Lodge, and then a bunch of random stuff happens in different areas of the United States. There's a murder that happens in Texas. We do follow the possessed Dale Cooper, who's driving around. I think it was Arizona or whatnot. And he also ends up killing a lot of people, or a couple of people. Actually, I'd say about 3 people. Mm-hmm. Looks like we're having some difficulty streaming here, but we'll. Oh no, it's back. It's just sort of these weird random scenes that are happening. Mm. And this is the first 2 episodes. Yeah. Meanwhile, Dale is Cooper is communicating with all the deities inside the Black Lodge, and they say it's time for him to leave. And they also kind of drop a bomb on him that he can't leave until his doppelganger comes back to the lodge.
Which means the evil one.
Yeah, the evil one. And the evil one apparently has a plan that to keep him out of the lodge because he doesn't want to go. I guess he doesn't want to go back.
Yeah.
So there's that happening, and then we go back to Twin Peaks all of a sudden, and we meet a character. We see a character. It's the receptionist, and she basically has a conversation with a life insurance salesman. And basically he's like, I'm here to see Sheriff Truman, who is another character from Twin Peaks, who's Cooper's, one of his best friends from Twin Peaks. And then they just say, which one? Are you here to see the sick one or the one that went fishing? And then he just kind of leaves out of just nervousness. He's just like a nervous wreck.
Did they only release 2 episodes?
No, they actually. Here's the thing: the first episode, I believe, is a 2-hour, basically 2-hour start. Then they release the second episode, which is only an hour, but there's no commercial, so it's a solid hour.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, they release 3 and 4 after that. So there are 6 hours of Twin Peaks out there for all the fans hungry for Twin Peaks.
Why are you complaining, chucking dice?
I'm not complaining.
That's a lot of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, that's a lot of Twin Peaks.
Again, this is on Showtime.
This is on Showtime. Okay. So they're allowed to do a lot of stuff that they weren't allowed to do in the original television series. And I would argue that this is more like Fire Walk with Me than the actual TV series.
What the original series? What did it air on?
It aired on ABC.
ABC.
Yeah.
Okay.
You do have these sort of transitions with the log lady, which is a woman who talks to a log, and she has some connection to the spiritual world and such. And it's kind of sad because the actress who plays the log lady, she looks like she's suffering from cancer, and in fact she was. Uh-huh. So basically, and I got to say this right now, a lot of people passed away after the making of this film. Not because it wasn't the cause of them passing away. It's just old age. Yeah. There was a lot of people who worked on that. There were older actors and actresses, and then they went to the other side for natural causes. So there's a lot of people who, including Miguel Ferrer, who was in, RoboCop and Iron Man 3. He passed on. So there's a lot of
But they still were able to film this.
They were still able to film it, yeah.
Or this was stuff. Were these cameos? Were these roles that they filmed before, like they passed away?
Yeah, they were able to do that. Okay. I think there's only one that
Man, David Lynch really kind of really hit the edge on that, right? Didn't
he
really,
did actually. He really pushed this time, and I remember hearing about him pulling out of the project because Showtime wasn't going to give him the money to do it. And they were going to give it to this other writer who wrote on the show, Robert Engels. But there was a lot of fan protests, and finally Showtime gave in and said, okay, here you go. You can have everything you need to shoot this, what I would say is an 18-hour film now. The show is weird. If you're just getting into Twin Peaks, you're not going to know what's happening. It's just going to be really strange to you. Now, if you dig that kind of stuff, if you're one of those hipsters who just likes stuff like that, who likes to see stuff that shows that have that where stuff happens and it has no meaning, apparently then you might like it. If you like David Lynch movies like Blue Velvet, or actually, I'm sorry, if you like Mulholland Drive or Lost Highways, you actually might like this series. And if you haven't seen Twin Peaks, for those of you who are Twin Peaks fans, if you're Uber fans who love Firewalk with Me, you might actually enjoy this. I kind of tend to believe that this show doesn't really start until episode 3 and 4 because they involve Dale Cooper's FBI cohorts, and that's when a story starts to begin because. Dale Cooper eventually escapes the Black Lodge. And I can only describe it this way. He escapes it by going through a series of scenes that are like paintings. He's living through weird paintings. First there was the lodge, and then he was basically exiled from there to another lair where it's on this weird ocean. And it's got in this weird building, and eventually goes in to see this woman who has no eyes. I thought she had something like a blindfold on, but she literally has no eyes. It's just all skin there. And there's something trying to come through the doorway to get to him. So she leads him to the roof, and they go through the roof, and all of a sudden they're in space on this weird cube. And then the woman touches something. She gets shocked, and she gets pushed out. And she starts falling through space, going all the way to the bottom and then coming back from the top and falling again. It's almost she's falling in a bottomless pit. So Dale goes back down into this weird that little area where the ocean was, and sees a device that kind of sucks him in, and that's how he's able to escape the Black Lodge. It's very weird, and it actually looks really cool though. That the thing is that 1 and 2 kind of just said I didn't really get what was happening, and I would say that if that was the first 2 episodes, I would be kind of disappointed. But 3 and 4 was actually roping me in because I care about the character of Dale Cooper. I think he's a great character, and it's come more apparent that this is going to be his story. So I like the fact that he got sucked into this weird thing, this almost power outlet, and then pushed out into another doppelganger of his. It's this weird guy named Dougie Jones, also played by Kyle MacLachlan, who's this sort of greasy real estate salesman that lives in Vegas, and basically they get exchanged. So Dale Cooper emerges in this house, this empty house that he's trying to sell, while Dougie Jones gets put into the Black Lodge, into the waiting room, the area with the red curtains and stuff. It's uber weird because Dale doesn't wake up as Dale Cooper. He wakes up as almost he's only halfway there. He's only repeating anyone says Dougie was actually sleeping with a prostitute at the time who was taking a shower. She comes out and sees him on the floor and just says where'd you get that suit? Because Dale Cooper wears this sort of very posh FBI uniform, while Dougie wears like this weird like yellow coat and like basically looks like a real estate salesman. And so Dale is like, in Vegas doing his thing. He ends up becoming Mr. Jackpot, which he goes to like one of the casinos and just keeps on winning like money in the slot machines. And then you find out that he may have some like gambling debts, which he pretty much squares away by winning all this slot machine coins. Yeah, these jackpots. And he's guided by what appears to be the Black Lodge. Like, he'll look at a machine, and all of a sudden he'll see an image of the Black Lodge on top of that machine, and he'll just pull it, and coins come out. The reason why I like 3 and 4 is because there's actually dialogue. 1 and 2 is kind of sparse with that dialogue, and I can only describe it as, if anyone's seen That Poppy, the YouTube sensation, I guess, that's how the dialogue's delivered. But then 3 and 4, we're getting back to that like sort of an actual television show dialogue. Not common dialogue, It's not like Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, but it's dialogue.
It seems like episodes 1 and 2 it's more of a setup.
Yeah, it's a prologue if anything.
Yeah, whereas 3 and 4 are okay. Let's delve into the actual.
Okay, we're
journey.
doing stuff now.
So it almost seems like, like you said, he's kind of halfway there in the Black Lodge, but also in this body. So his quest is probably going to be trying to get the bad doppelganger.
Yeah,
back into the lodge.
Back into the lodge, basically. And I think that's probably where it's going. And we kind of leave out what's Twin Peaks is famous of is there's these tropes that it has. Like, they drink coffee, they eat like damn fine coffee, eat cherry pie, and then eat donuts. The last scene of this fourth episode is basically like Cooper is Dougie Jones. He's living the life of Dougie Jones. Dougie has like a wife and a kid, and then the wife played by I was gonna say not Nicole Kidman. What's Naomi Watts, played by Naomi Watts, which is a connection to Mulholland Drive because she was in that film as well. She ends up handing Dale a cup of coffee. Which is it's iconic because Dale loves his coffee and he loves it black, like in a moonless night. So he like looks at the coffee, like smells it, and he says coffee and just drinks it. And then he does a spit take, which is it's a throwback to one of his scenes in the original Twin Peaks, where he like spit out the coffee and went and goes, "Damn, that's fine coffee and hot." He does a scene similar to that there, and they turn around and say Dougie. And at this point, Dougie only repeats what people say to him. That he doesn't really have like his own words, and this is where he just kind of looks up and says hi, which I don't believe anyone said to him at that point. So I think it's kind of a sign that Dale Cooper is slowly emerging out of the personality, and then he'll hook up with all the people from Twin Peaks and all his FBI cohorts and such. And then that's where it's kind of left off.
Do you think they'll bring back Chris Isaac? And
I was hoping they would bring back Agent Chet Desmond, which is Chris Isaac's character. I believe the character that was played by Kiefer Sutherland, his character apparently, like at least according to one of the novels or the novel that kind of fills in all the spaces, they said that I guess his character got into alcoholism and just disappeared. Probably because of his connection with Chris Isaac's character, who'd also disappeared. I don't think he's coming back, but I'm hoping there would be a big surprise, and he does. I actually hope they actually shot some, because like Bowie was actually in Fire Walk with Me, and his character's the character from Fire Walk with Me was actually mentioned in the show, the new show. So I'm hoping that maybe they shot some scenes with Bowie before he passed away. It's very highly unlikely. But it would be kind of interesting to see that. And it's kind of interesting they chose that character rather than Chris Isaac, who's still around. And like it would be kind of a kick to see Agent Chet Desmond, because I kind of actually did like his character from the Fire Walk with Me film. But yeah, that's all up in the air. I'd really like to see that. It was kind of cool seeing all the other sort of like other characters that existed in Twin Peaks. It looks like they haven't been roped into a storyline just quite yet, But again, like the first 2 episodes were a prologue. Dana Ashbrook, who played Bobby from Twin Peaks, Bobby was this sort of like greaser, kind of like, thug, kind of like, character. Always wore a leather jacket, always was like snapping when he was talking. He was kind of seen as a hoodlum, but like, then sort of had like was a hoodlum with a heart because he had an association with another character named Shelley Johnson, who's this like really good-looking waitress. We see his character, and now he's sheriff's deputy of Twin Peaks, and it's kind of cool to see him like change through time. It's like he's no longer the thug. So it seems to be like an interesting start to the show. I mean, it's by no means will this show rope in anyone who doesn't know anything about Twin Peaks, unless they really like very surreal stuff. But it's kind of roped me in as a fan. It's a good thing I went until episode 4 because, episode 2 was just kind of like, I don't really get it. I think, it's more Firewalk with Me, and I think he's done that story. And like, I feel that he's done Firewalk with Me, that style of storytelling, 3 times. One, obviously for Firewalk with Me, one Mulholland Drive, and another time in Lost Highways. I feel like those movies are kind of relatively about the same thing. But that's all I got for.
You just go back to your Eraserhead.
The
goddamn Eraserhead.
The weird baby that they have,
the lizard baby.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's descend out of the Black Lodge and let's talk about some other stuff. Let's talk about Prey.
Prey. So yeah, Prey. Just released a couple weeks ago. Prey from the same studio that brought you Dishonored 2. Bethesda and Arcane. Bethesda being the publisher, Arcane being the studio. Prey tells the story of character, your character, which is named Morgan Yu.
Wait, Morgan Yu?
Yeah, Morgan Yu.
Is he Asian dog?
They are Asian. It's a Chinese character. I believe their father is Chinese and their mother is like a German. Is German. Your character Morgan Yu, and you can actually pick whether Morgan is a male or female. They have that option.
That would explain this picture.
Yeah, they have that option in when you start the game. So as Morgan Yu, you wake up and it is your first day working for a corporation called TranStar Corporation, the TranStar Corporation, and you get a phone call from your brother, Alex Yu, and he essentially tells you, go ahead and get ready, get on the helicopter that's waiting for you, and we'll take you to TranStar so you can start your day. And you get to your helicopter, you get to TranStar, and it's actually a really nice opening because it's kind of a very mundane, kind of slow burn opening. You get up, you can interact with your computer, you can interact with the world, you can look at your emails, things like that. You get on the helicopter, and there's a really nice, really cool intro song, like the song that they have playing while you're flying in a helicopter over. You're supposed to actually be in San Francisco. As you're flying over San Francisco, it's really cool. You get to TranStar, and Alex has you go into a room so you can take a test, and that's when things start getting a little off. You kind of feel things are a little. You start kind of getting a feeling that things are a little off here. You go into this white room, and these scientists are behind a panel of glass, and they give you these. First, they give you a questionnaire. Then they give you these exercises, and this questionnaire. The questionnaire has weird things like, if there's a train track, if there's a train that's barreling down, and the train can go either in 2 directions, you can switch to track. Would you and on each one track it's 1 person, and on another track it's 10 people. Right. Like, what's your option? Do you switch it to kill the 1 person and save the 10, or do you kill the 10 people to kill the 1 person, or you do nothing? And then it goes on, and it's like, okay, now there's a fat man on the platform station, and if you push him in front of the train, it'll stop the train, but it'll kill him. Or do you want to do nothing, or do you take the plunge yourself and save everyone?
Needs of the many
So it's really
outweigh
weird.
the needs of the few.
Yeah, you start kind of getting a little unnerved.
Yeah.
It's a little uneasy. And then, and while you're doing these, you can hear the scientists, like you can see and hear them, like kind of just. One of the times is like, oh, someone give me a cup of coffee, and then the next test is like you got to move boxes around in a certain number of time limit, and then another one is you have to hide, and it's just really weird. And then all of a sudden, as you're taking these tests, the scientist asks for a cup of coffee, and he picks up a cup of coffee, and you actually kind of see it in the corner of your eye. You see kind of this like little kind of smoke spider crawl up to the table, and it transforms into the cup of coffee. And the scientist picks up the cup of coffee, and he's like, "Oh, there's no coffee in this," and he gets attacked by the spider. It's by the alien entity,
right?
And that starts the game. Shit, something. It was actually pretty cool. There's a plot twist at the very beginning of the game.
It's it's almost like a alien influence, kind of Dead Space-esque.
Yeah,
which I love Dead Space.
Oh, you would. Well, I'll get to it, but there's a part where you would love it. Like it was very Dead Spaces. So that starts that actually starts the game, and that starts your journey. Again, there's a plot twist at the beginning of the game. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys because actually it's nice.
Just to discover that on your own.
Kind of to you see that realization, and you're like, motherfucker, like. And then, the game starts, and now the goal of the game is you're stuck you're actually stuck in a space station, and you have to escape. You actually have to escape. There are multiple ways. There are a few ways you can actually get to the end goal. There's one of the things you can do is you can actually say, fuck this, and you can leave in an escape pod, and that is actually an actual ending. Like,
oh, really?
You can just leave.
Is it like an ending where like it says, oh, but you die on the way out?
Yeah, like you leave, but it says game over. Like, oh, you left everyone to their fate.
Right.
There's also another ending where there's a few other different endings you can do, but I wanted to talk about that one specific because that's actually a cool mechanic. Like, you're like, I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. Like, I'm getting the fuck out. But there's a lot to like about this game. The game is so as your journey starts, the only thing you really have is a wrench to attack these aliens with.
Right.
The game is very, very. The audio design is really, 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 really great. You'll hear like various things in the station, like kind of sizzling or popping because the station got attacked. There's a lot of absence of music where it's to a point where it's a little unnerving. Like Dead Space did the same thing. Yeah, it had a lot of things like that.
All you can hear is like the creaking of the station.
Yeah, you would actually enjoy this because it takes a lot of this from like especially like movies like Alien and and games like Dead Space or like Resident Evil, where there's these kind of moments of no audio and you're just kind of like, okay, this is really freaking me out.
Right.
It's a very very anxiety-ridden game because these aliens can actually mimic everyday objects. So let's say you're walking down the hall and you turn this room. And you kind of see this stool that looks a little off.
Yeah.
Like you kind of see it glitch a little, kind of twitch a little bit. And you're like, oh, you don't really think anything about it. Then you get up close to it and it attacks you. It turns into the spider thing and attacks you.
It's like a bad trip on acid or something like that.
Yeah, and it's cool because there was a few moments where like I was walking up some staircases, and at the top of the staircase, I get into this room, kind of like a medical office, and I see a stool, but then there's a stool right on top of the stool. Like, the stool's standing upright, but then there's a stool that's kind of like upside down on top of it, and it looked a little odd. And I was like, and you're going to do this often in the game. You're like, I'm just going to bash everything with a wrench, and if it's an alien, I got it.
Yeah.
These are called mimics. And, so obviously enough, it was a goddamn mimic. There's a lot of little moments like this that are really, really great. Has really great level design. You do get weapons. You do get your standard handgun, which actually is a silenced handgun. You get a shotgun. Those are really the only two kind of weapons you get.
Right.
The other few items you get is you get something called the glue gun, which shoots out kind of like. You ever seen that foam you see in like movies or like video games or like even cartoons where it sticks to it's like kind of like the riot foam. It quickly hardens, kind of like Demolition Man. Yeah.
I was gonna say.
So you get something like that, but what makes this glue gun really cool
is
you can actually use it to plug up leaks and like a gas line, like if a gas line is burst and it's spewing fire, you can plug up the leak. You can plug up an electrical panel that's going on the fritz and electrocuting the entire room. You can also use it to make stairs. Like if there's a room above you that you want to get to, but you don't have the key card, but or not that you don't have a key card, but you can't get up there, just make a staircase. Like the glue. This glue gun, the ammunition will stick to walls, and so you can make your own staircase. So that's really cool. Then they have other stuff like they have it's essentially a stun gun, and then they have you have your wrench, and you also have you end up getting something called the Q beam, which is very similar to the line gun from Dead Space. It's just this giant, but it's actually very reminiscent of a phaser.
Right.
You know how when they shoot phasers, it's
like a line.
It's like a line, but it doesn't kill you instantly. It kind of like charges up, and then when you get so much energy in you, you like blow up. That's essentially what the Q beam is. So you get various weapons.
Very similar to Demolition Man when Simon Phoenix gets the phaser weapon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Wait, where are all the phaser weapons?
I love that scene. The whole scene when they're fighting in like the
That's
museum.
an incredible scene, yeah. But
we should watch Demolition Man.
So you're basically telling me this game is basically Demolition Man in architecture.
This game has been called the spiritual successor to System Shock and System Shock 2. Again, there's a lot of little things that are very much taken from that. You could also say this is very much like kind of like BioShock, which again was a successor to System Shock 2.
Yeah.
There's a few plot twists. There's a few things that you end up interacting. There's a few like besides the plot twist. There's also a few people you interact with. One of them, of course, being your brother. But you also interact with people who are still also stuck on this station. You can help them out in certain ways. Like you can, one person asks you, "Hey, can you go?" Before we leave the station, I left some like sheet music from like my favorite composer. Can you get that?
What?
Other stuff is like.
Hey, I left this like meaningless piece of paper back here, just sentimental value. Can you just go get it?
There's other things.
No.
There's other things like there's a person who's on the security team who's actually your former. You were in a relationship with them, so they're like they're an ex-girlfriend essentially.
Is it just ex-girlfriend or just ex-girlfriend?
No, it's a girl. So if you play
so you play the girl.
If you play as female Morgan Yu, she's like,
Right. Awesome. That sounds hot.
So she's got some kind of disease, and you end up finding her medicine. You can give her the medicine, or you can not give her the medicine and kill her. There's a really cool side.
This is what you get for breaking up with me.
There's actually a really cool side quest, and I think you would probably dig this too, where you end up finding out that this cook on the space station is actually an imposter.
Right.
And you kind of end up going into kind of cat and mouse game where like you help him do something, and when you get back, he tries to kill you.
Right.
And when you escape, he locks you into this kind of like meat locker. You escape, and you realize he's an imposter. So they give you a task of tracking him down and killing him. And as you're going throughout the station, he puts booby traps on doors and things like that. I mean, you can disarm these traps, but when you do, he'll like call you over. He'll call over like your intercom and talk to me. He's like, "Oh, I guess you found my booby trap." And then later on, he's like, "Oh, you're like, he's like, you still looking for me?" He's like, you're not gonna be able to find me. Like, I'm gonna get off the station and, I'm gonna win." And then it's actually really cool because when you actually get to the conclusion, when you finally find him, it felt very, very gratifying to shoot him in the head. Because they really, really play out the cat and mouse game you have with him.
That does remind me of a mission in Dead Space. I think was it the third one? I think where there's like a person like in the control room of one of the orbiting stations, and like you find out that guy's long dead, and like I guess he like basically rigged the station to block off all the necromorphs. And I think it is the third one. And he blows up all these like weird like vents, and all the necromorphs come through. Mm-hmm. And then like you eventually kind of find him in the control room, and he's been long dead, and you've been talking to a recording basically.
Oh yeah. I think I remember. Yeah.
And then he just lets out every single necromorph. But then you find his cache of weapons and stuff.
Yeah, and he had like a huge cache of stuff. Yeah. And it's actually again this game was really, really enjoyable. Yeah. Again, I was pleasantly surprised.
This is only a one-player game.
This is a single-player game. Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised at how invested I became in this game, but I'm not surprised that it was from the same studio that did Dishonored 2 because, again, Dishonored 2 is probably one of my favorite games so far, more recent games.
Right.
It has really good level design, really good writing. Gameplay's top notch. There are, and then I actually enjoy the story quite a bit. There's a certain section towards the end that's kind of annoying because it turns into a bit more of a gauntlet.
Yeah.
But there's certain things you can do, like based on what abilities you choose, you can stealth it or whatever. This game also does give you a choice in how you play it. You can either you can invest these neuromods, which what a neuromod does in the game is, or in the in-game lore, what the neuromod does is actually rewrite your brain, and it gives you people's abilities. Like what it does, neuromod will record somebody's like piano playing ability, and then somebody can buy that neuromod and inject it in their, and it's actually a needle in your eye socket,
just like Dead Space. I'm sorry, just like Demolition Man.
Yeah, and it like it gives you their ability. So in this game, like neuromods are kind of like kind of like in RPGs, they're essentially like ability points,
new powers.
So you can do things like you can run faster, you can jump higher. For $6 million, you also get powers like in BioShock. You get flame powers, electricity powers.
Can you shoot out bees from your hands?
No, you can't.
Are there dogs with bees in their mouth, and every time they bark, bees come out?
Unfortunately, there isn't. Different things like there's also things like you can craft when you recycle things. You get more recyclable materials. That's another thing that you can do in this game is you can mod your weapons, upgrade them. And there's actually a pretty cool mechanic, and it's for the people who like to collect everything. Things in the game like food or even just everyday trash like paper or like cigars, you can recycle them, and it turns it into raw materials, which then you can use that raw materials to 3D print a variety of things. Like you can take all that raw material and 3D print yourself a shotgun or more neuromods or an upgrade kit or like a suit repair kit. This game also has spacewalking. You actually go out in space outside of the space station.
Got magnetic boots on and
you don't have magnetic boots. It's actually 0G navigating. So like you have to orientate yourself a lot of times. You can turn and it's 360. It's all very quiet. Like it's similar like Dead Space where
you just hear them breathing.
Science, but you hear them breathing, but you also can hear like you hear like the force of explosions and things like that. Actually I would say this is probably one of the, besides Dead Space 3, is probably one of the best examples of navigating and moving around in space that I've seen so far. The music is top notch. There are a few things that will kind of hamper your enjoyment, though. The game is hard.
Really? So it's not a very easy game.
It's not a very easy game. I played this game on easy, and I still had a difficult time. Like there were some weird difficulty spikes here and there, especially towards the end when you hit kind of like a gauntlet of things to fight that attack you. It can be you're gonna die a lot. The good thing is that there's quick save and quick load, but still there's this game can be quite difficult. Another thing that I didn't enjoy from this game, or that kind of hampers a little bit, is that the loading times are long. And for a game where you're exploring a huge station and you're moving from area to area, that really, really breaks up the flow of the game.
Right.
So especially towards the end when you're kind of running around doing like these side quests. But like, for example, is when you're trying to find that imposter and you're following him through different areas of the station, it really kills the flow because you're just like, I just want to go kill him. But every time you hit a new area, it has to load. And the load times are
so you're just like seeing a spinning whatever, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, it just kills the momentum of the game.
Yeah, I always thought like load times was like sort of a thing of a past. I guess that's not the case.
No, that's still. Yeah. I think the more and more advanced games get, I think the worse load times are gonna get. It just really depends. I remember there being an article regarding this on Kotaku, and a lot of it actually comes down to the way that we're still reading data off of hard disks.
Right.
And that's the biggest problem, is that no matter what you do, you're still transferring data from physical medium to digital to digitize it. So you still have that physical media is essentially the big like elephant in the room of getting shorter load times. Obviously on PC, you do have things like, your solid state drives and things like that, but still, that's still a physical medium that you're reading off of. So unless we have like crazy ass quantum computers, we're still gonna have to do.
I'm always still impressed with video games nowadays because I mean one of my first gaming systems I would say besides the Atari was the Commodore 64, and when you loaded something just to start, it would take quite a bit for that game to start from like a floppy disk. So as long as it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the couple things that can kind of kill momentum, but. For those of you who were fans of BioShock, System Shock 2, or System Shock,
Demolition Man,
or you like you like a really good horror kind of thriller suspense game,
right?
I would actually highly recommend this.
Yeah, the mimics kind of remind me. I mean, I just mentioned I was a Star Trek fan, but it reminds me of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. There was actually these alien beings called changelings, and they could change into any kind of object in a room or people and like imitate them. And like the Federation was in a war with them, so there was like a hard time finding these types of aliens, and that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. You do encounter other types of and the mimics are a type. They call these aliens typhons.
Right.
The mimics are a part of the typhons. Like they're a certain kind of typhon. You do fight other ones, like you fight phantoms. You fight something called a poltergeist, which acts like a poltergeist, which is it's invisible and it like lifts you up in the air. You fight these other things called techno. What are they called? Technopaths, which they control robots, because the station has these things called operators, and they're kind of like these like hovering toaster looking things, and they can do anything. Like they can repair you. They can repair your suit, they can heal you, or they can give you more of your psi boost, which is the energy used for your powers. But what the Technopath does is it can actually control these things. It can actually control turrets. There's turrets you can hack and have them fight for you. And you also find other kind of typhons in there. But the changelings, the changelings, the mimics in this game are I would have to say it's like the best. It's probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
That's an interesting little gimmick they have.
Yeah, and it's great. It's because you really do go into a room and you're like, okay, what the fuck is gonna try to kill me?
Right.
Or like I'm just gonna wrench everything.
Right.
And it's funny because there's an area you run into where you read somebody's email and they're talking about, yeah, I think there were some mimics in here, so I put a post-it on everything that wasn't a mimic. And you go into the room and you look at it, and there's like post-its on every single thing in the room that says, not a mimic, not a mimic, not a mimic. Like the NPC wrote down and posted it everything.
Right.
So it's actually really cool. I recommend this game.
It sounds like it's something right up my alley. Right now I'm playing Alien Isolation.
Oh, how's that going?
It's a pretty good game. I mean, I guess it's very similar to Outlast, and you're just kind of running around and like I've encountered the alien once. It killed like an NPC that I was following around. I haven't gotten deep into the game because I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise, and I was like looking at every little thing. I was like, wow, they've really matched the architecture to the first movie and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I would say check out Prey.
This sounds more action packed. So
if you're kind of turned off by the action, I would say just watch people playing it. Just watch people's streams
like
of
let's plays and stuff like that.
Yeah, let's play and watch streams. It's actually a fun game to watch people play.
Mm-hmm.
My wife saw me play a bit of it, and she like noped the fuck out when things were trying to attack me. She, similar to how she reacted when I played Dead Space, she was like, "Yeah, I don't want to watch you play that." She always yelled when I played Dead Space because it'd be really calm, and then all of a sudden Necromorph would just come out from a vent and start attacking me.
Oh yeah, I hated that.
So if you can't take if you really aren't good at action games and again, I don't fault you because this game is difficult.
Just put it on easy and give it a try.
Actually, our former coworker Frank Espada, he actually picked it up. He rented it from GameFly, and he like was texting me. He's like, "Dude, where do I repair my suit?" I was like, "You can find bots or repair kits." And he's like, "I'm getting attacked." He's like, "All I have is a wrench. I ran out of all bullets." I was like, "Dude, just put it on easy. Like, make it just make it easy for yourself. Put it on easy. Just play on easy." He's like, "Okay." So, but yeah, I recommend this for you looking for a good intense game.
I put games on easy just because I kind of want to get through it as fast as possible.
I
I still have difficulty in some games.
I put games on easy mainly because I want to get because I like stories. I like to experience the story, and I want to get through it. I don't want to I don't want to be frustrated on.
It just seems like when you put it on hard, the gauntlet is just harder.
Yeah, and I don't get people who do that. I really can't understand that. But some people love that. Some people love the challenge.
People, love the challenge. They like to show off and stuff, and it's really cool to see him fight all these enemies. But in the end, we're all heading towards the same direction,
which is beating the game. Yeah.
So. Unless there's, there used to be games out there that actually reward you for, beating it on the most difficult settings.
Does Alien Isolation have an easy mode?
It does, actually, yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm playing it on normal right now. I think there's novice, easy, normal, and difficult. So there's like a bunch of settings. So I just chose easy and not novice.
Okay. Because I wanted to play it too, and that was my problem with Outlast, is there's no easy.
Right.
It's just, you just play it.
Right.
So, I'm happy when games give you difficulty options. Because now that I'm older, I don't have that much time to play. I can only play at night, and it's like I don't want to fucking keep playing this because I don't want to keep playing this because I can't get past this stupid section.
I mean, as a kid, I remember playing plenty of games where they were like platformers, and they were just like difficult platformers where you need to jump from one direction to the other, but you have to time it right. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I don't know, usually an eagle will come by and it'll have that weird knockback, so you go into a pit.
Or like Medusa, like in Castlevania.
Yeah, Medusa's, exactly. And I had enough time to master that stuff. I mean, I can't say that I'm still a master of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty good, but but as a kid, I had plenty of time. I can't imagine playing a game and getting a horde of enemies attack you. I'm just like, at that point, I just drop the game. I'm like, I don't want to play.
I'm the same way.
It's like a shoot 'em up when you have the pattern of enemies come at you and stuff, and there's way too many, and I can't keep track of everything.
Yeah.
I can't play it after a while.
It's annoying.
Yeah. All right. So, did you want to talk about a little bit of Destiny?
Yeah, I can talk about Destiny. So, Destiny 2 was revealed not too long ago, and just again 2 weeks ago. I believe it was on the 18th of May of this month. They actually revealed gameplay for Destiny 2. It was a huge event in Los Angeles. They showed off showed off the intro level to Destiny 2.
Right.
People went crazy for it. It was actually really cool. It looked really cool. For those of you who know, for those of you who don't know, Destiny 2 is a co-op shooter, first-person shooter.
Talked about it a couple times.
We talked about it a few times. Destiny 1 has really wound down quite a bit. Destiny 2 looks like it's on track to release in September.
Right.
There's going to be a lot more information come E3 for Destiny 2, but they had a gameplay preview, and what they showed off was the premise is that you get attacked by the Iron Legion. There is this faction of one of the enemies in Destiny 1 called the what are they called? God damn it! I don't know. They're basically space Romans.
Right.
They
come up and they go for Sparta.
Yeah, they're like space Romans. So a lot of their enemies are called Centurions fucking things like that. And the opening of Destiny 2 is you're the last city, which is essentially your home base in Destiny 1, gets attacked by the Iron Legion. They're a faction of this of one of the enemy races, and they burn everything down. They pretty much attack you at home, and they burn all your shit up.
Just like Gladiator.
Exactly. And so the opening level that they showed off is they showed off a few new abilities. The classes are a little bit different. They showed off the gameplay. It's the same really good top-notch gameplay you have from Bungie. You just have different abilities. Like the one everyone went kind of crazy over was the hunter has their Stormcaller class, I fucking forgot. I can't even remember anymore. Essentially, their lightning class is they have this lightning spear, and they're actually really acrobatic. They actually kind of look like Jedi, kind of doing like Yoda when he was doing the flipping and
against
spinning and stuff
Dooku.
like that.
Yeah.
The one that looked really, really cool though, and I think you'd probably enjoy, is for the Titan, which is my favorite class.
Right.
They actually get a shield, and it's like Captain America's shield.
Oh, that's cool.
And I shit you not, you basically turn into Captain America. Like, you can throw your shield, and it'll hit enemies and bounce off, and you pick it back up, and like you can like run and bash them, and it's just really cool. It was really cool.
That sounds badass. Yeah.
You know, the Warlock they have this giant flaming sword where they just fly in the air and they throw like these kind of sonic booms of fire at people. So they showed off a lot of the new abilities. They changed up the way the guns work now. You actually have three gun slots, but the first 2 gun slots can be primary weapons and secondary. So they split them into kinetic, which is bullets, or energy. So you have anything that uses energy or is like an elemental. And then your third slot is you can have your heavy weapons. And there's one controversy that people kind of pissed off is that they looped in sniper rifles with heavy weapons. So you can't have a sniper rifle and a rocket launcher. You can only have a rocket launcher.
Was that like a balancing problem that they wanted to fix?
I think it was a big balancing problem that they wanted to fix for PvP, for the player versus player, like the competitive multiplayer part of it, which again people are kind of complaining because it's like the balances you're trying to introduce for competitive multiplayer are affecting the people who only want to play it
co-op, yeah.
So people are a little steamed about it. The UI looks a little different. One thing that a lot of people are noticing is this game actually looks a lot better.
Right.
Or not better, but it looks a lot more. It looks more robust, and the art direction has gone a bit better. And Bungie is actually a lot of experts and journalists are attributing this to the fact that they are no longer splitting their resources between the last generation of consoles.
Yeah.
So they're no longer.
So they're concentrating on this generation.
They're only concentrating on PS4 and Xbone, and they're also making it for the PC. So they're saying that now that their resources are freed up from the last generation, they can concentrate on making this game work wonderful and great. So their art direction's a little bit better. There's a lot more stuff on screen. One big thing, a big takeaway that I got from this is that they're pushing this game to look more, to be more like the Taken King expansion, where it was a lot of these kind of scripted events, but you also had the story just kind of felt alive because you had people, you had different factions talking about it, talking to you about things. You had these kind of scripted events that made it look really cool and really big. One of them being, when you start off in the opening level that they showed, one of the faction leaders, his name is Zavala. He is like the head Titan guy that you go to when he's essentially like the quest giver for all Titans. You actually you're getting attacked, and as you're getting attacked, you see this giant barrage of like missiles coming at you, and he throws up a Titan shield, and you're supposed to get into his Titan shield, and this is all in real time of the gameplay. So it's really cool, just kind of like fighting alongside these characters that you only really talk to in the first game. So it's cool, like seeing them more dynamic and more kind of like part of.
It's more of a world.
It's more of a world. It's a little more organic.
It's not like in was it DC superheroes online where you talk to Wonder Woman or Superman. It's like, yeah, could you go stop like Solomon Grundy? He's totally invincible.
Yeah,
like you're Superman and Wonder Woman. Why can't you help us?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Nah, I gotta stay on the station and like look at stuff from afar.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot more of that. So it looked really great. Now some of the criticism that's coming out though is that people are saying that this didn't really show off anything new.
I mean, you don't want to show all your cards though.
Yeah, and a lot of people are complaining that it just kind of just seems like more of the same, or more like this should have just been Destiny. This should have been what Destiny Year One was, like what Destiny 1 should have been, instead of making a sequel and having us pay, full price for it. I'm reserving my judgment until it comes out. They're also going to hold an open beta, I believe in July or August. So I'm reserving my judgment. But what I've seen so far looks cool. I'm kind of hyped.
Yeah, it's
about
weird
it.
that people's opinions always go with, well, this is the one that you should have came out with. Like, well, obviously it's a sequel and you've had some time to develop the tech.
I can see why people are saying
Right.
that, but I think the other thing people have to remember is that Destiny 1, when they made it, they had to make it for
PlayStation 3.
PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on
Yeah.
top of PS4 and Xbox.
Which is a hard thing to do.
Which is difficult. And again, they split resources.
Mhm.
So it's not something that, it's not. Yeah, they could have made it more like. They could have made Destiny more like what it was now,
Mhm.
but it would have meant an overhaul of a lot of their. It might have
Right.
meant overhaul of a lot of their systems, especially when it comes to like the world building systems. Like especially scripted stuff. Scripted stuff is not easy to do. I mean, coming from QA and seeing this stuff is like a lot of stuff is not possible. So.
Right.
It's along the lines of people who have never worked in the industry or have inside knowledge. Like you really can't. Like it's unfair of you to kind of.
I think like an equivalent to this is that I remember a while back ago. I mean, this was when Marvel Ultimate Alliance came out a long time ago.
Yeah.
They came out with obviously the PlayStation version, the Xbox version, the PlayStation 3 version, the Wii version. They also came out with a Game Boy Advance version, which was nothing like any of the games because Game Boy Advance was a glorified Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And they couldn't come out with the same game. So obviously the Game Boy Advance one seemed more like a side-scrolling beat 'em up, kind of like Final Fight or Streets of Rage.
I probably would have enjoyed.
Actually, I did like playing the game. I like the simplicity of it all. I mean, obviously it didn't follow the exact same storyline, but it was fun enough to.
Could you switch out characters?
You could switch out characters, yeah. Yeah,
That's
you could
cool.
switch from Spider-Man to whoever, to Iron Man, whatever. But, obviously, in this, I think
Of course, you would never switch out Iron Man.
No,
right?
I wouldn't.
Right,
It's like, okay, there it is, Iron Man. I'm just going to be him for the rest of the game.
You're like, I'm just going to be Iron Man forever.
But, it was, very different. And it's hard to do a sort of a game like that where it's compatible for everything.
It's difficult, and I'm sure it can be frustrating for the developers because it's like, look, we're this other generation of consoles is eating up our resources. Like, and they and to their credit, they actually did that. Like towards when they released Taken King, right after Taken King, Bungie announced that it's like we're no longer going to support the previous console generation.
Yeah.
Like when they released Taken King and then they released Rise of Iron, and they made an announcement saying Rise of Iron is not going to come out on PS3 and Xbox 360. Like,
which made a lot of people cry.
They're like, we
Probably,
can't. Like, we just can't support that generation of consoles anymore. And a lot of people were upset, and they were like, well, I bought the game, and you basically shut down my game, so now I can't do shit anymore.
Right.
And people were obviously pissed. So, I mean, it really is like, I don't know. I feel like gamers can sometimes be very, very entitled.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
And it's frustrating, and it's like, I mean it's frustrating, but at the same time I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time it's like, your games are moving towards a service now. You're paying for a service,
right?
And
yeah, I always have this conversation with I guess younger gamers. They always hate the fact when a game comes out, patches come out with it, and then you have like the downloadable content and stuff. I think that's cool to me because I always see it as, oh, they're coming out with an addition to the game or whatever. But then there's like downloadable content like, different skins and different like stuff like that, which I kind of see as, well, that's kind of a cop-out right there. But when it's like additional missions or whatever, like, well, why can't they include that in the game? It's just like, well, do
you know how complicated these games are?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, are you unhappy with the game now? Like, no. It's like, well, here's an addition to it. It's like, well, back in the day, they used to like, put it in there. It's like, yeah, because we never connected our games with the internet.
Yeah.
And now we have that technology.
And also kind of an argument against, for that too is that sometimes the DLC sucks.
Yeah.
Like it's been my personal experience, and I know Tiny Dinosaur shares this as well.
Yeah.
Every time Bethesda makes a game and they include DLC, their DLC has sucked.
Not very good?
No. Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Obsidian did Fallout Vegas, but I didn't think DLC was that great either. Fallout 4, Skyrim, I mean, their DLC has been fucking horrible. I did not like the DLC for Fallout 3. I didn't like the DLC for New Vegas. I didn't like any of the DLC. It wasn't fun. It wasn't interesting. I mean, it wasn't. I was
no
like,
Dead Space 3.
It was no Dead Space 3. Actually, you know what? Dead Space 3
That had great DLC.
Dead Space 3 DLC was great.
Yeah.
And because it had two. It had the
basically the epilogue to the game.
It was the epilogue, and then it had it had two, right?
Did it have two? I thought it was just.
They didn't have the
because we played that mission, right?
Yeah. Was it two or was it just one?
I think it was just. I want to say it's just one. I don't remember a second one. I remember us basically sort of Dead Space 3. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't played that game. It's been out for years.
I wish they would fucking do an HD remake of those.
I do too. I was very surprised not to find any Dead Space in any of the stores, but except for I guess PC. But it ends with basically the original story ends with I think what's her name, like Ellie or whatever, like Isaac's girlfriend, flying in space, safe and sound. Isaac and Carver risk their lives to save her and such. And then it kind of picks up with Isaac and Carver, who are still on the planet of the necromorphs, who are supposedly all dead because they destroyed all the signs. And then they're trying to get off the planet, but then more necromorphs appear and they kind of evolve in a new form. And then finally they get onto a ship and then head towards Earth, and then they find out that Earth has been infected with necromorphs, and it's a cliffhanger that's supposed to lead to supposedly Dead Space 4, which we'll never get because I think Visceral went out of business, or the people who created the game.
No, they. Sorry, what was the question?
What happened? The reason why there's no Dead Space 4. I heard sales was part of it.
I think it was sales, but also I think they kind of decided to take a break from it.
Right.
They weren't asked to make a sequel to it, so they're just like, okay.
Oh, that's a pity, though. That was a great game. Great series of games. I liked all three. First one was probably my favorite, but I think the aspects of the third one just made it so much fun to play, particularly if you're playing it co-op.
Oh, you're right. There was only one.
Right.
There was only one.
Yeah.
It was Awakened.
Yeah, and I thought that was a good idea. You make this sort of small episode of the two characters that you play, and
I gotta admit that ending boss fight when we're on that fucking platform, when we're fighting that giant thing, we had that souped up TK.
Yeah,
I was like, this is great.
Yeah, you gotta throw the stuff
because I was just because at that point I was like, why don't you throw and I'll just shoot everything and I'll protect you.
So basically, I was throwing all the signs at the other side.
It was awesome. I mean, it was one of my favorite co-oping experiences.
Yeah, that was a great game. I loved playing that game.
And it was great playing. It was great also realizing, because when I played it, I finished the game solo.
Yeah.
So when I played with you, it was great seeing that whole hey, are you seeing all this shit?
And I was not seeing anything.
You're like, what are you talking about? And I would send you.
We would go into an empty room.
Yeah, I would send Chuck and Dice screenshots. Like I would send them pictures on my phone. I was like, this is what I'm seeing. He's like, yeah, I'm not seeing that.
It's and I would be like, what the hell?
And I'd be hearing. I would also hear shit on my headset. It was crazy. It was great. I don't know. I still to this day hate the fact that people.
Well, they bashed the game. Yeah,
they bashed the fuck out of the game. Yeah. I even talked to a buddy of mine who we had a conversation about Resident Evil 5, and I told him, I kind of feel like Resident Evil 5, a lot of people shit on that game.
I wasn't a fan
for the co-op, and I was like, and I feel like that's kind of how Dead Space got it.
Yeah,
Dead Space 3, and he's like, well, I never really played Dead Space 3. He's like, I played 2, and he's like, I know a lot of people like that one. He's like, yeah, I just heard Dead Space 3 was horrible, but I never played it. I was like, honestly, if you would have played it, you would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, if you played it co-op, it's a different experience. Yeah. It's much more fun. The thing is, I've played the game twice now, and it was both co-op. I was playing it a little, ordinary, just single player. Mm-hmm. But I got to say, the co-op put a whole new dimension to it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's still It's still intense. It's still an intense game co-op. I mean, it's not like you lose any kind of cheap thrill, but it's
the closest for me. That game is the closest that I've gotten to that Space Marine kind of atmosphere that I've always wanted.
Like Alien 2.
Yeah, basically Aliens.
Sorry, Aliens.
Yeah, I've played so many different games, whether it be Doom, whether it be actual the Predator versus Alien on PC, where I wanted that experience of going down a corridor with a group of Marines to fight a horde of whatever creatures, obviously xenomorphs. But I've never played a game that gave that vibe. I played a lot of co-op games, like Halo. Halo never really gave that vibe because it was too too warlike.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like, we're going down corridors. We don't know what's going to pop up. I got one guy who's like hallucinating. I got myself like, thinking about my own problems kind of thing.
Yeah. And what made that great, I think that set that tone too, where the characters was Isaac was an engineer, and I just love those little touches in the game. Where it's like, oh, do this to fix this engine or whatever. You're like, well, how would he? You're like, are you sure? He's like, I'm an engineer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or like the scene where he was like, after 2 games of fighting Necromorphs,
he's Ash basically.
He's basically Ash. He's just like, dude, just shoot the limbs off. Just do it. Just fucking.
Like, I've done this.
I've done this before. Like, I've done this twice.
I've been checking out these things called real movies, REEL movies. I know how to spell movies, but there are these like sort of games that they like kind of edit to be presented as a movie, and I've been like, I wanted to replay Dead Space, like how we're talking about, and I thought there was going to be an HD remake just sitting on the PlayStation Store so I could download my PS4. There isn't.
No.
So I just kind of watched this, and I just love that.
I think it's available if you do the PlayStation Now.
Yeah.
Like their video game streaming.
Oh, really?
I think it's available. No. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if you're able to do it co-op either.
Oh, okay.
I would love for them to do an HD remake. I mean, even just I would love it.
I want to get the first one. I haven't played it in such a long time.
One's great.
I let someone borrow it, and I forgot who borrowed it, and they never gave it back.
Sons of bitches.
Yeah. I'm gonna find you.
The first one's great.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one is still like top notch. And I think another reason why people hated the third one, I don't know why they would hate the third one and not the second one, was like, oh, why is Isaac talking?
Come on.
And it's like there's too much story and exposition to do with just text. Like,
yeah, he's got like a new girlfriend, and then he's got like this other, or I guess an ex-girlfriend by the third one.
Yeah.
And then he's got this guy named Carver who's always like giving him shit. I love the banter they had. It was like a buddy cop film. It was awesome.
Carver was such a dick too, but it was great because it's just like that moment when he tells him, he's like, you know what? He's like, you may be an asshole, where he's like, you're a generally like good guy,
right?
Like you're a good man, Carver. Like,
right.
Which is great because
it reminds me of this buddy cop film. Actually, a lot of people say this is the first buddy cop film, Freebie and the Bean, which had James Caan and oh God, what's the actor's name? He's from like Little Miss Sunshine. He played the grandfather.
Oh, Alan Arkin?
Yeah, Alan Arkin. They play these 2 cops, and then like they basically, are trying to like take down this like, corrupt government official, but what they do is like go through his trash and stuff, and they just get into fights with each other and arguments and stuff. James Caan is always like throwing racial slurs at Alan Arkin because he's he's Hispanic. Also, Rhoda from Mary Tyler Moore is in it as well. Valerie Harper playing Alan Arkin's wife. And the movie is hilarious, but it has that same vibe where they just kind of hate each other.
Kind of like Samuel Jackson and Bruce Willis in Die Hard 3.
Basically like Zeus and John McClane. Yeah.
So yeah. Destiny 2. Going back to Destiny 2.
Going back to Destiny 2. Check out that when it comes out.
Check it out. Again, we'll probably hear more when E3 rolls around, but I'm excited.
All right. So next up is a movie that we've both seen now at this point.
Oh, wait, hold on. We should probably talk about the most recent celebrity death, Powers Booth.
Oh, Powers Booth, who he's in one of my favorite movies, Southern Comfort. He died recently.
Yeah.
He's also, I guess, he's in Avengers. He's in...
Oh, yeah, he was in Avengers, wasn't he?
He was in
one of the
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., playing the same character.
Wasn't he? He's one of the part of that group of...
The Shadow Organization, or like the government, I guess.
Powers Booth. He was...
He's the voice of Gorilla Grodd.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He was. And then he was in my wife's favorite movie, Tombstone. He was the...
Tombstone, that was...
He was the main cowboy.
Yeah, he was the main cowboy.
He's such a dick in that movie.
But...
He a lot of good roles he played.
Yeah,
and he also did a lot of voiceover because he had like the really great kind of
the strong kind of voice.
Yeah, kind of similar to I would say his voice is very similar to Michael Ironside.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's
they have that nice.
Recently, I saw Michael Ironside in Turbo Kid. By the way, that's one of my new favorite films.
So yeah, so rest in peace, Powers Booth.
Yeah, Powers Booth. All right.
Moving on.
So let's move on to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, if you guys haven't seen the film, and shame on you because this thing has been out for over 2 weeks, go check it out.
It'll be out on Netflix soon.
Yeah, it'll be on because you got to deal with Disney and such. But this is obviously the sequel to Guardians 1, Guardians of the Galaxy. it has to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but you wouldn't think that it had anything to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe because it takes place mostly in space. There are some scenes that take place on Earth, but it's not it's not like the Guardians are there. What do you think of the film?
Too goddamn long.
It's only an hour and a half.
It was. No, it's like 2 hours.
Is it?
I thought it was like 2 hours.
We'll see about that.
Maybe because I saw there's 30 minutes worth of previews before it.
Actually, yeah, there was a lot of previews when I was screening it. Or when I saw it.
Honestly, I liked it. It was enjoyable. But I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know. I think the last Marvel movie that I really enjoyed,
Doctor Strange,
immensely, was Civil War.
Right.
And then even before that was Ant-Man.
Oh, Ant-Man, huh?
Because those were right after Guardians 1, right? Because it was wasn't it Guardians 1 and then Ant-Man and then
was it Guardians? I can't remember.
It was a good movie, but there was aspects of it where
it is 2 hours long.
There was aspects of it where I felt like were a little kind of drawn out. I did like the story of it all, like the main plot point, and I liked Mantis actually a lot. I actually liked the dynamic between Mantis and Drax immensely.
I was gonna say like
that was my favorite part of the movie.
Like Drax, there's a lot of people who stole the show for me in this film. Drax particularly, because I'm a wrestling fan too, and I never would ever see Dave Bautista as a really good actor, but he's actually really good in that role.
I don't know if it's like James Gunn's directing,
right,
or maybe whoever's giving him acting lessons, or just coaching him, or whoever, or even the writing. But his timing on things, especially comedic timing, with the things the offhand remarks he says, or the uncomfortable,
just the simple things that he says.
It's perfect. It's just
you're beautiful in the inside.
Yeah, it's perfect. I think my favorite thing he did was he's when he rats out Rocket.
Yeah,
he took those batteries, and he's like, "Oh no, he didn't take those batteries. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just ignore me," or something like that.
Something
it's great.
Sense,
it was great. I really like the dynamic between him and Mantis. I really enjoyed them. Rocket's arc was pretty great.
It was good,
and his that
a little melodramatic at times.
Yeah. Because Rocket can get a little annoying.
Yeah.
But his scenes with Yondu and just that was great.
This is what the movie to me. This is what the movie's about. Is about Yondu. Yeah. Because I always had a sense that he did have that sort of fatherly love to Peter Quill in the first film, but this becomes about face and it's something that you don't really expect to happen. And
it was great too. It made sense too. Yeah. It wasn't just something that they just
it wasn't shoehorned.
It wasn't shoehorned. Yeah. It wasn't tacked on. It made sense, and it not only did it make sense in the context of the relationship, but it also made sense in those contexts of Kurt Russell's character,
right? He played Ego, the Living Planet. Yeah. Another one of my favorite cosmic characters from the Marvel Universe.
One thing I did have trouble with was Sylvester Stallone's character. I had no fucking idea what he was saying all the time.
Well, the thing about that, let me get into that a little bit. What I really thought was really cool is that Sylvester Stallone's character is actually Starhawk. Bring out an image here. So you guys, you stuck around for obviously the post credit scenes, right?
Yeah.
So what's cool about those characters? I mean, I know that this is sort of more of for the comic book geeks, and this is probably me being a mouth breather a little bit. But those characters are the original Guardians of the Galaxy, in the comic book form.
Who were the actors? It was Sylvester
Stallone, Ving Rhames, Michelle Yeoh.
Anything Michelle Yeoh's in it. I fucking love. Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum and Miley Ray Cyrus.
She was in it.
Okay. So the characters that they were playing was Sylvester Stallone was playing Starhawk. Actually, technically, Sylvester Stallone and Michelle Yeoh were playing Starhawk, but they were going by their names. Ving Rhames was playing Charlie 27, which is this really huge guy, and obviously Ving Rhames fills that role perfectly. Mm-hmm. Rosenbaum played Martinex, an alien crystalline crystalline being, and Miley Cyrus was playing a character named Mainframe. Now, a lot of people have been making this mistake in a lot of news articles and such. They think that Miley Cyrus is playing Mainframe that's associated with Iron Man, because in one of these comic books called A-Nex, it's supposed to be Avengers Next. It takes place in the not too distant future. Tony Stark has downloaded his intelligence into an AI and basically put him into an armor called Mainframe, which kind of looks like a pseudo, Iron Man armor, except it's yellow and black. She's actually not playing that Mainframe, but the Mainframe from the comic book of Guardians of the Galaxy, which is sort of like a AI based on the Vision. So, yeah. Don't make that mistake, guys. She's not playing Iron Man. So I thought that was really cool because when that appeared on screen there, I exactly knew where that was from because I did actually read a little bit of the 90s Guardians of the Galaxy, and I also read a lot of their adventures that happened, during the 70s and late 60s or, early to mid 70s. They've kind of always been around kind of thing, and, I think it is best that the current Guardians of the Galaxy works better as a movie, particularly in the sense of how the narrative is told. Whereas the past Guardians are a little, I don't know, they're a little too old school, I would say. They're interesting, but not quite interesting, and I love it that they made them Ravagers. And I love how Stallone just takes out the gun, because Yondu was actually a member of this team as well. So that's why it's it's kind of cool to see that. And I love how there's okay, let's go steal some shit, was basically his line. And I loved all the post-credit scenes. Jeff Goldblum was in the film in the post-credit scene for no reason at all. He was literally just dancing as his character from Thor.
Oh, is that when they were?
Yeah, he was playing the Grand Master. Yeah.
Oh, Stan Lee?
No, Jeff Goldblum.
Sorry, good. He was. Was it when they were warping through space, or was it?
No, it was just the credits were rolling, and then they're showing all these images of the Guardians dancing.
That's right. He was just.
And then Jeff Goldblum was there, just kind of dancing, and he's just in the film. And that's why I love it, because James Gunn is one of those directors that doesn't care if it's wacky or not. This is a wacky world, and you're gonna have a Jeff Goldblum.
I thought the part where they show Stan Lee talking to the Watchers.
Oh yeah, that was a great scene.
So he is immortal, right?
If you guys aren't aware, in the Marvel Universe, there is these alien beings called the Watchers, and what they do is they just watch things happen. They don't interfere. They have this sort of code of non-interference. And the most famous of them all is Uata the Watcher, who made his debut in Fantastic Four. And he's more famous because he predicted the coming of Galactus, which, Galactus shows up on Earth and he warns the Fantastic Four that they're coming. And he's the only one that has kind of interfered. So, the thing is that, I guess people, this movie is saying that Stan Lee is Uata the Watcher, which makes sense because he's been in every Marvel movie, whether it be created by the Marvel Cinematic Universe or by Fox or by Sony. It makes sense that he would be this kind of character because the Watcher actually had a comic book called What If, and what he did was he would watch alternate dimensions and watch different storylines pan out. One of my, a couple of my favorite ones was what if Iron Man lost the Armor Wars, which was this storyline that happened in on Iron Man. And there's other stuff what if Uncle Ben had lived, what if Flash Thompson became Spider-Man. Just all these different kind of cool Marvel storylines that played out differently, and it makes sense that Stan Lee is a Watcher. Or, in this, they made it kind of look like he was an agent of the Watchers, but I would like to believe that he's just Uata the Watcher. Who, and I loved how his line where they were kind of just walking away and goes, "Hey, wait, I got so many stories. I got plenty of stories. Come back. You're my ride home." So yeah, he I guess he's a Watcher, this immortal being that just shows up, and who knows, maybe they'll record they'll get some images of him, record him on a green screen, just kind of idling around doing different things, and they can just put him in all the movies from now. After, even if he passes, God forbid if he passes away, which I don't know if he can because he's 96 years old. I think he made a deal with the devil.
Yeah, he's gonna live.
Or
forever.
he is the devil.
He's gonna live forever.
Yeah. Watch him die tomorrow.
What do you think is gonna happen with Adam Warlock?
I think this is pretty cool. So in the movie, there's this character named Aisha, who actually plays a character is based on a character in the Marvel universe called Her, and she's created by, I believe, an organization called the Enclave, which was an Earth organization, but it looks like for the sake of the movie, they changed her into an alien race where they actually create birthing chambers. And at the end of the film, she's kind of one of the other antagonists, I guess, one of like the I guess a proto antagonist, because spoiler alert, Ego is actually the big bad mastermind, Peter Quill's dad.
Great, you ruined it for me.
And at the end, basically, she says that she has the ultimate weapon to use against the Guardians, and they show a birthing chamber, and she says that I think I'm going to call him Adam, which is a precursor to Adam Warlock, who was also created by the Enclave to be the sort of ultimate human being. In this case, I guess ultimate alien being. I don't know what's going to happen because Adam Warlock is very associated with Thanos. In fact, they're like bitter enemies. The other bitter enemy of Thanos is Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, not the current Carol.
Are
Danvers.
they like polar opposites? Like, are they? They're
not so. I wouldn't call them polar opposites. I don't know what to. I mean, they've just been enemies. They were enemies during the Infinity Gauntlet. The thing was, Adam Warlock had this connection with the Soul Gem, which I think is in the current possession of in the cinematic universe right now with Vision.
Yeah.
Or is that the Mind Gem? I don't know what gem.
I think it's.
Is it the Soul Gem? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is the Soul Gem.
No, it's a Mind Gem.
It's a Mind Gem.
Yeah,
because it wasn't the stupid. Yeah,
because it takes over people's. So he's associated with one of the Infinity Gems, and at one point in the comic books, when he died, his essence went into the gem with a bunch of others, lost or like people that died during the existence of that gem. And he lived in this paradise. And then later on, Thanos found out that if he gathers all these gems, he could have infinite power, the power of beyond or whatever. And he would be nearly omnipotent. So they became sort of basically just they became just like adversaries throughout this entire time. So I don't know what they're going to do because it seems that Adam Warlock is going to pop up after Avengers Infinity War. I don't know if they're going to keep Thanos alive until Guardians Volume 3, but it looks like he's going to be playing a bad guy, which I think I'm kind of cool with because they're already kind of like leading Avengers to a different direction. So with Thanos, and it's going to be kind of cool to see that pop up. So I don't know what they're going to do with Adam Warlock, and I think that's why I kind of really enjoy it because I don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's so cool. Like one of the people I saw it with was like, "Oh, I thought there was going to be more of Thanos stuff." I'm kind of glad there wasn't.
Yeah, because that kind of just overshadows everything, and it would have taken too much focus from Peter and his dad.
Yeah, then it just becomes about Thanos at that point. And I like that was a part of they just had this like sort of family theme. They had this like sort of the only Thanos thing that they was Gamora and Nebula being at odds with each other. And I thought that was a wonderfully played scene because I am a huge fan of Karen Gillan because she was in Doctor Who before and she was in Guardians, and she actually had some great scenes with Gamora where they're just kind of like fighting and then
they're just
really going at it, and then
they're kind of just airing out all their grievances.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Love that scene. Love the scene with Mantis and Drax. Really like the scene with Yondu and Rocket. I mean, I even like the scene with that one Ravager that's played by James Gunn's brother.
Yeah, cool.
I thought that's a great character. All the scenes with Peter Quill and his dad and at one point, what's his name? Kurt Russell turning into.
Oh, you mean Peter Quill turning into Pac-Man?
Well, that was a cool scene. That scene was way better than Pixels. But there's one where Kurt Russell was talking to Peter Quill after they find out that he's the big bad guy, and then he turns into David Hasselhoff.
Oh yeah.
For a second.
That was great.
And I was just like, holy David Hasselhoff, Knight Rider.
David Hasselhoff loved that.
Yeah,
He's like, oh, I got to be in this movie.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it's weird. This movie can be parody, but it's still serious because, right at the end, spoiler alert, Yondu passes, and it's a very sad scene. It's a very sad eulogy too. But to me, this movie was kind of transcended what what a comic book movie can be, because a lot of times I think when people say comic book movie, they want this sort of Western pastiche where it's very dark and very goth kiddish. They're basically looking for Batman, Tim Burton Batman, and if they're not looking for that, they want Superman the motion picture.
I would say it's a very emotional movie.
Yeah, it's a very emotional movie. It has a lot of layers to it, a lot of great lines. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. I mean, that's a great line. It's a great scene, too. You look like Mary Poppins. Is he cool? Yeah, he's the coolest. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
I like Drax a lot.
Yeah.
He was fucking hilarious.
Oh, yeah, he was just he had these sort of idiosyncratic... can't say it.
Idiosyncratic. I don't know.
He had all these little things, these little habits of him. I love the scene where he has all his stuff and he's leaving, and it's you're taking a lot of stuff there. I don't want Groot to touch my stuff.
One of my favorite scenes, and it's funny, somebody actually pointed this out.
Yeah.
Was and they saw it in the trailer, and it's the scene when they're fighting that monster in the beginning.
Yeah.
And
Shumagorath.
Yeah, and is that really Shumagorath?
Yeah.
They actually say that's Shumagorath?
I think that is, because that's my theory, because he's got the tentacles and stuff. I mean, he has 2 eyes instead of just 1. So
he's a dimensional being.
Too. So yeah.
One of the things I like was when they're fighting Shumagorath, and Groot's saying hi to Gamora, and she's like, hi, but just the way that she delivers it, somebody wrote, oh, that's exactly how I say hi to my kids when I'm busy doing something, and my kids want my attention, and I'm just like, hi. It's like you don't want to be mean to them, but you're also I'm preoccupied and I don't have time for this shit. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're you're trying to kind of say, oh, hi, but
hi,
and that was perfect. That's perfectly sums up.
It's like a parent.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say that Gamora was pretty much the de facto parent in this entire film. Yeah, which I think is a cool role for her. We're talking about Mantis. I read an article saying that I'm really disappointed in the character of Mantis. They turned her into this character of servitude, which they think is sort of racist. Of course, this is written by a white guy. I'm kind of glad what they did with the character Mantis, because they made her thematically different from the character from the comic book. Mm-hmm. The character from the comic book, she's sort of this almost weird warrior monk type character, which I think we don't really need those kinds of characters, because she had this very, I would say, stereotypical way of talking. She always says this one, this one has a plan, or this one will she was. I mean, she even though she's I guess an alien, she looks Asian. I mean, she was found in Vietnam in the comic book, and they say, oh well, she was badass and she knew martial arts, and I'm kind of okay with him going with a more alien look, and how she has more telepathic, which she does have telepathic powers in the comic book, and I'm kind of glad they didn't make her into a carbon copy of Black Widow, because Black Widow's that character. She can be a martial art badass. I'm not saying that she can't be in this movie, but I'm glad they did something different with her, made her more of a Deanna Troi type character, rather than Black Widow.
Also, I'm sick of Black Widow. Well, I'm just sick of Scarlett Johansson.
Well, you don't like ScarJo.
I don't like Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow.
I like ScarJo, but it's kind of saying, your problem with this character is that she didn't know martial arts. She wasn't some weird warrior monk that talked in a very stereotypical way. That falls in the same line with people who didn't like Mandarin, because he wasn't this Asian guy that basically was Fu Manchu.
He wasn't the racial.
Yeah, the racial
the racial stereotype.
Yeah,
I actually really liked Mandarin.
Yeah, I like Ben Kingsley as Mandarin.
Or Ben Kingsley. Yeah. I thought he was the best part.
I think that's what the Mandarin should be like in the comic book, because I really hate the Mandarin in the comic book.
Yeah.
Because he's there's times when they present him and he's not as stereotypical. But then there's other times where, you know, he comes in and says, "The Mandarin is infallible." Like that big teeth, kind of like, you know, squinty eye Asian Mandarin, which I absolutely hate. But no, I like the new spin on Mantis. You know, really, like the Guardians have always been sort of this like new spin that James Gunn has put his like stamp on. Because like if you read the comic book to Guardians, and I've had many conversations with people who also read the comic book to Guardians, it's nothing like the movie. Like Rocket acts completely different. Peter Quill is nothing like Chris Pratt. Drax is nothing like Drax when you see in the comic book. I think in more recent comics they're tailoring it to that because they always kind of do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen that lately.
Yeah.
They've been. I've read a lot of articles too, and even the DC universe are kind of trying to tailor their comics to their
movie
movies
counterparts,
so that their fans of the movies can get into the comics.
Which is not a bad thing, because when Batman the Animated Series came out, and there was this entire wave where they were like molding Batman to be very much like Kevin Conroy's Batman. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a good thing that, you know, that they're turning Iron Man more towards Robert Downey Jr. The sense of that character was always there, but Robert Downey Jr. let it out more. And obviously, Christopher Reeves had always an influence since 1980 on Superman, which I think is a good thing, because like they brought out something in the character that like was brand new and like, you know, very appealing. With Guardians, I don't think in the comic book sense, like I remember reading like the Guardians that were based on the characters of the movies. And I just read it, and I was like, "This is awful. This reads like a really shitty '90s like comic book." And like there's no depth to it. I don't really care about the characters. The character seems to be more geared towards killing people than doing anything that, like, you know, the movie presented.
I just like Howard the Duck's cameo.
Howard the Duck's cameo was great. Like, I hope he cameos in all the films. I hope he cameos in all the Marvel films.
They had the dog too.
They had the dog there.
They had, the
Cosmo or whatever.
Cosmo, yeah.
You know, like Guardians is just like a fun film, but it can get really emotional.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that that cast of characters are going to be in the next Avengers film. It's going to be interesting to see a lot of these characters interact with like the Avengers, particularly Robert Downey Jr. is going to be a big one. I just want to see him in a scene where he's drinking with Rocket. They're just like getting drunk and enjoying like a good whiskey or something like that. And then Drax talking to anyone.
I know, talking to anyone.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see how they're going to incorporate all these different characters. I mean,
because they've established this world now that's like how, like, okay, so when people kind of like look at comics, there's always like a different era they kind of focus on. Like the old timers always like that 60s era. I mean, and I like that era too. It's just that it's that brilliant era where imagination could just go wild. And then there's that era that, like, you know, everyone's in love with Alan Moore. They like that cynicism era. Yeah. Which, yeah, it's good. It's good. I love Watchmen. Not a big fan of Dark Knight Returns. Everyone loves that one. I think that's a product of its time, and I think it was good back then. But if you reread it now, it's not as good.
Miller is definitely a product of his time.
Yeah, Miller is definitely a product of his time. But like this era of sort of the Marvel universe is kind of, you know, and I'm incorporating everything here. It reminds me of that 80s, like, you know, early 90s mentality. Not the later mid 90s where it became like very Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld. This kind of reminds me of the beginning of like the 80s, where you could have comics that takes place in space, you can have comics that takes place in a city or underwater or anywhere, and it kind of has like this sort of cohesiveness of existence, and it doesn't take itself too seriously with too many things. Like they don't focus on, like, you know, like politics too much, but they can. And when they do, it kind of just works. It's like this weird era that they can experiment with the storytelling where it can be funny, but then it can be really sad at the end, which I definitely think they did in Civil War 2. Captain America Civil War, not Civil War of the as well, or whatever. And like, you know, that's why I'm loving the cinematic universe right now, because it just reminds me of that age in comic books where, like, I was reading all the stuff, you know, whether it be Dark Phoenix or the Iron Man, the Armor Wars, or, you know, Avengers, the Korvac saga, or Spider-Man, the Venom saga, or before that, the Black Costume saga. it's this fun era where anything can happen, but it doesn't necessarily have to be too dark, or it just has to be an emotional in some ways.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Is Doctor Strange supposed to be in?
So, I hear that he's going to be
because he has the time gem, right? Yeah, he has the time gem.
Yeah. Fun fact: I have a friend who works in the industry, and he knows some of the people who works as a grip on set of some of those movies. Apparently, Benedict Cumberbatch couldn't be there, so they basically shot a lot of his stuff with his stand-in, and shot his close-ups like way after those scenes were done. Yeah. So he is going to be in there, but we're probably going to see a lot of scenes where
he's far away.
He's far away, or his back's turned. But that's going to be kind of cool. I hear that Spider-Man's going to be in it. This is kind of cool to me because one of my as a kid growing up, my favorite kind of comic books was when superheroes crossed over to take on some kind of big threat. Like one of the more memorable ones is the first Secret War back in 1984-85, where all the superheroes are taken off the planet, and an army of supervillains are also taken off the planet, and they're put on this planet called the Battle World by this guy named the Beyonder, and he says, "Slay your enemies, and all that you desire will be yours. And I can do anything. I created this planet." Galactus then tries to attack him, and he flings Galactus away, like he was nothing. She's like, "I can give you what you desire," because apparently this is an extra dimensional being trying to understand desire. And so it was kind of cool because and it's funny too because that storyline was kind of tied to a toy line at the time, and all these villains and superheroes just start obviously they start fighting and stuff, and I love that as a kid because I was like, oh my god, the X-Men are right next to Iron Man, right next to Spider-Man, right next to the Fantastic Four.
That's not going to happen, though.
That never will happen now because all these rights are tied into different studios.
I don't know. I wouldn't doubt if
Fox needs to let go of that Fantastic Four license or do the same thing that they're doing with Sony with Spider-Man.
I honestly, they're probably waiting to see how this Spider-Man's going to do, and if it does well,
you think they'll go?
I think Fox will attempt because they're having problems with their X-Men movies. Yeah. I think every time their X-Men movie comes out...
Apocalypse apparently wasn't a very good film.
Every time their X-Men movies comes out, I think they're making less and less money. They still make a lot of money off of those films, but they're making less and less. And they probably also want to just get some maybe goodwill.
Yeah, I think...
So I wouldn't
the fandom definitely is kind of turned their back.
I think I wouldn't doubt if the Spider-Man movie does well, they start talking to Marvel about the character.
Yeah, they really do because it's kind of hurting them, and particularly the Fantastic Four stuff.
Yeah, that's never been done right.
No, that has. There are four Fantastic Four movies.
Who would you pick? Who would you think who is your ideal writer and director?
Ideal writer and director. Okay, writer Bruce Timm because he knows those characters, and you can tell in all of his projects that he's dying to do those characters, particularly in the animated form, because he knows Jack Kirby. And he knows that. I would choose Bruce Timm. I know that he's done no live action, but I think he can adapt pretty well. I think that's really the next step for Bruce Timm right now, to do a live action superhero. Director, I don't know who. I want to say James Gunn right now, because he does balance cosmicness with emotional storytelling and stuff, and that's what Fantastic Four is pretty much about. But I don't want to say him because then he's just going to do. I mean, he's already done it. He's done Guardians. Yeah. I'd rather pick someone who's sort of like a new kid on town or whatever, maybe, and someone who has a love for comics.
Brett Ratner.
Brett Ratner. He could bring in Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker.
Chris Tucker can be
Thing,
Mr. Fantastic.
Or Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ben, get your ass down here. Lift this thing.
Jackie Chan
playing Thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Get down here, Jackie.
Yeah,
okay, Chris Tucker.
I mean, I know this is kind of off topic too.
Right.
They announced Whedon doing Justice League, finishing Justice League.
Well, which I want to say that it's very unfortunate that Zack Snyder had to lose a daughter to basically suicide.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, and it's really sad.
Yeah, I don't like any of his movies, but I think that's unfortunate.
But it's nice that Whedon was able to come in and take over that, and I really hope that kind of, because I actually like Zack Snyder. I like his style. Like
I
I don't. Okay, I don't say
I think Dawn of the Dead was his best movie.
I don't hate his style.
Yeah.
I don't hate Zack Snyder like a lot of people do. I don't hate his style.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to directing, he's
right.
fine. It's the writing that I can't get behind.
Right. That's why I always say Dawn is his best movie because James Gunn wrote that one.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is pretty funny, isn't it?
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. So, and that's the thing is like I don't mind his directing. I just don't like his writing. So if he were to continue in the DC universe,
right.
I would want somebody to write it as opposed to I would want somebody else to write those movies,
right,
and him just direct.
Which would be a smart thing. I mean, that's what Man of Steel was.
Or you know what? Even then, at the very least, produce.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Man of Steel was written by, I think, unfortunately, written by David S. Goyer, who I don't think understands really the character. I did see that that Zack Snyder did rein it in. By no means is it a great movie though. But I would say out of like sort of the 3 current DC universe movies, that was probably the better one.
What would you say? So here's my take on the way they're doing Superman.
Right.
Is that I think they're very much trying to keep Superman not the Christopher Reeve Superman and not this like Boy Scout Superman. I think they're trying to kind of make him get to that point as opposed to being that point.
I heard an article about that. I don't think that they were doing that. No.
That's kind of that's kind of like the slack I give them is they're trying to get Superman to that point, which kind of makes sense in the contents of
I feel that they're pivoting to that because they have nowhere else to go with it. Unfortunately.
You know, and I don't know.
I don't know. That's
I also
they did dumb down Batman. I feel that he's the world's worst detective now.
I'm just really tired of Joss Whedon. I don't know what it is. I wouldn't be surprised though.
I mean, I'm not. I thought he did a bang up job with the Avengers movie, and I hope that he's. The thing is that he's not going to be redirecting the entire Justice League movie. It's just
I wouldn't doubt if he takes
reshoots.
over too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt if he does too. But yeah, I'm just sick of waiting. All right, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're hitting 2 hours.
We're hitting 2 hours here. So we're gonna wrap it up for this episode. Sorry, getting situation here.
What did you do?
I don't know.
So yeah, we'll be going to E3 this year. We like I said, we talked about it a little bit. We will be attending. We will be doing a road. So it will be a road trip for us.
Yeah, it's going to be a little trip. We're going to bring the mixer. We're going to have some guests with us. We're going to have, I guess, do we call him Johnny 5 or should I call him Juan?
Yeah, we call him Johnny 5.
We'll call him Johnny 5. His name is totally not Juan, but his name's Johnny 5, and we'll have.
We might have Tiny Dinosaurs.
Tiny Dinosaurs might be there. Yeah, who used to be part of Laudering Bites. And we have another friend of yours, Frank. Yeah, Frank might be there. You'll meet Frank, I guess, for the first time. We'll talk about some stuff. I want to scope out porn.
VR porn?
VR porn. That's the only thing I care about in the video game industry.
You're like, I'm going straight for the porn.
Yeah.
There's 2 people that are going to go to there's 2 lines that are going to form at E3. The VR porn line and the Nintendo line.
You'll know where I'll be.
The Mario Odyssey line.
Mario Odyssey.
You're going to be on the Mario Odyssey line. You're like, this isn't porn.
Yeah. I'll be like yelling at the person.
You should totally do that. And if you see fucking Miyamoto there, you throw the Switch at him and you're like, this isn't porn. I would pay to see that. I just like yell at Miyamoto. Just like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
I can't do that to Miyamoto, the father of Mario and Zelda and Link and I don't know.
And Mega Man.
Well, no, that's Kenji Inufano.
Mega Man and Castlevania.
I thought that was Irigashu.
No, Iga was more the Metroidvania. He was the father of the Metroidvania. He kind of ushered in the Metroidvania.
Who's the guy who did Metal Gear?
Hideo
Kojima?
Yeah, Kojima did.
Is he going to be there?
I don't know. I wouldn't. Actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be at E3.
I
don't know if I don't think he's going to be showing anything off.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure he's going to be there. Actually, no.
He's working on a game with Norman Reedus, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since they've talked about it, so I wouldn't be surprised if
it just kind of shows up.
Kojima shows up and shows off.
Sneaks up on you, and then
or
turn around and go.
Well, they might show it up. They might show it at the the PlayStation presser that happens before E3.
Oh, okay.
A lot of those companies are also going to do pressers
Yeah.
before E3, so maybe that's something we can do. Like, there's something we're going to talk about even before we go on to the E3 show floor.
By the way, guys, you can check us out on Podomatic. This is so you can download and listen to it. You're going to have to download the app, though, to listen to it. Or you can listen to it online. Or you can just go to YouTube and listen to this one.
Or we'll print out a transcript and you can just read the entire 2-hour transcript.
We're
not going to do that.
We're not going to do that. Share, like, and subscribe. Tell us about what you're interested in seeing in E3. Or, tell us what you thought about Guardians. Tell us what you thought about Twin Peaks.
Tell us your deepest, darkest secret.
Tell us your deepest, darkest secret. If you played Prey, tell us the most difficult part in Prey.
Also, tell us your deepest, darkest secret so we can laugh like in Guardians.
In Guardians, yeah. Do me. Just to let you know, I do have a VidMe account opening it up. It's vid.me/chuckingdice. Maybe I'll put this on here. It's basically, I'm just putting all my content on VidMe as well as a backup because that's a sort of growing community. A lot of people say that's the new YouTube nowadays. Or what YouTube used to be like. YouTube is very commercial right now, and you can't do anything without breaking a copyright.
They changed, man.
They've changed, yeah. You've changed, man. You've changed. So you can check that out. The link's down below in the description. Yeah, leave a comment when this goes up, and we will see you later.
Thanks for listening.